You're listening to Myers-Briggs Question Corner with Edythe Richards.
Today's question comes from Sandra, who states, I'm an ENFP and I've recently started dating an INTJ. What can you tell me about this pairing? Let me start by saying that it's my belief as a Myers-Briggs Master Practitioner that any two healthy, well-developed people of any Myers-Briggs types can have a successful relationship. While the Myers-Briggs may be useful in predicting some of the joys and challenges that various relationships will face, there's no completely accurate method for predicting relationship success with any assessment or tool. Personality is such a complex topic, and as much as some people would like to believe otherwise, personality isn't quantifiable or diagnosable. I'd first like to talk about the satisfying parts of the ENFP-INTJ pairing, and then the challenges, closing with my recommendations for strategies that have been helpful to other ENFP-INTJ relationships. It's my hope that this podcast will help ENFPs and INTJs have a happy and successful relationship, whether it's romantic, like Sandra and her partner, or family, friends, or even colleagues. It's been said that ENFPs and INTJs are naturally complementary. These two can definitely hit it off right from the start because they both live in a world of intuition, which is all about ideas, possibilities, and meanings. In fact, both of these types have intuition as a dominant cognitive function. If you're new to the Myers-Briggs, intuition is an information gathering process that relies on the sixth sense to key into their imaginations and how present events will affect the future. And therefore, they tend to be theoretical and abstract. The way these two types process their information is quite different, though. ENFPs are all about brainstorming. The more ideas, the better. And the more out of the box and unique, the more intriguing, and the more they have to share it. For INTJs, intuition is more focused. Rather than coming up with as many outcomes as possible, they rely on the process of elimination and connect existing ideas. While ENFPs are the idea generators, INTJs are the ones who glue together the best ideas and create the plan, and together they can bring the idea to life. INTJs are drawn to ENFPs' enthusiasm, and ENFPs are drawn to the INTJs' ability to give them clarity and focus. Now, intuition is the only function that this pairing shares, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. Most type practitioners agree that S and N is the dichotomy that connects most easily. Couples who share this preference tend to view the world in a fundamentally similar way and may find it easier to understand each other and are more likely to feel that they're speaking the same language. Differences in relationships are an opportunity to learn and grow, though they can also be a source of frustration, but more on that later. In the case of INTJs and ENFPs, if you're familiar with type theory and cognitive functions, you'll know that both types use introverted feeling and extroverted thinking, though in a different order. Extroverted thinking is a function concerned with how to get things done, reaching goals, and achieving an end result. This is the auxiliary or secondary function for INTJs, and the tertiary or third function for ENFPs. What that means is that not only is it the second and third function to develop, but it's the second most comfortable place for the INTJ to operate, and the third most comfortable for ENFPs. Both types also use introverted feeling, which is all about making decisions aligned with one's own personal values in order to maintain internal harmony. For ENFPs, this is the auxiliary function, and for INTJs, it's the tertiary function. In terms of how this plays out in day-to-day life, INTJs will be more conscious of completing tasks in a logical and efficient way, while ENFPs will be more conscious of their own emotions and values. It's therefore natural to see how these two types may complement each other. Ultimately, with the INTJ-ENFP pairing, it's often really about opposites attracting and offering each other opportunities for personal growth through a relationship with someone who's different but still speaks the same language. On some level, most ENFP and INTJ pairings are drawn to each other precisely because of their differences, seeing things in their partner they don't see in themselves, and doing things they might not otherwise do or try. Every relationship is going to have points of difference to greater or lesser degrees. It's our awareness and ability to temper our preferences that we will build strong relationships as a couple. The ENFP-INTJ pairing does have its frustrations, which are likely to show up in 1 to 3 areas: socializing, communication, and planning. Let's look at socializing first. Because these two types have different dominant functions, extroversion and introversion, their needs to connect with the external world or internal world are going to be very different. ENFPs report being at their best when they're in the world of extroversion, connecting and engaging with people, evaluating potential, and seeing patterns that shape the future, coming up with all sorts of scenarios and possibilities. This cannot happen if the ENFP is alone. So if they're forced to be in the world of introversion for too long without external stimulation, ENFPs are apt to become moody or depressed, and they're just not going to be their best selves. It's the opposite for INTJs. INTJs need a serious amount of alone time. This is how they strategize, plan, and do their best work. Without it, INTJs can't accomplish things. And an INTJ who doesn't accomplish things is like a plant with no water. INTJs will be at their best when they detach themselves from their surroundings to focus on world domination, coming to a greater understanding about the universe and such. They're going to be very unhappy spending a lot of time in the ENFP's natural world of networking and parties. It's important that both of these folks find a balance with social interactions. For ENFPs, don't expect your INTJ partner to go to too many social events, especially frivolous ones. Small, intimate gatherings are preferable to INTJs, and it's even better if they're opportunities for deep, enriching conversations. And ENFPs, it's okay to go and socialize without your INTJ partner. In fact, they'll probably thank you for it. INTJs. Avoid making premature or harsh judgments if your ENFP partner is overly social. Remember that this is their preference, and they'll be happy and energized when they get to interact with others. And they'll be thrilled if you join them once in a while, as long as you smile and you're open and genuine with other people at the event. One more thing to watch out for in terms of socializing. ENFPs, in their zeal to connect with everyone and everything, may seem like a bit of a flirt. In the ENFP's mind, they're just being friendly. But to the INTJ, it may look like unnecessary flirting. Both of these types should be mindful of these scenarios. ENFPs, you probably are just being friendly, but try taking a step back and understanding how this behavior may look to your INTJ partner. Now, let's talk about communication between the INTJ and ENFP. This type pairing has very different needs for communicating. ENFPs tend to process everything externally, and as a result, will naturally check in on their INTJ partners to make sure things are good in the relationship. ENFPs tend to be very self-aware, insightful, and expressive people, especially with regard to feelings. This is not the comfort zone for INTJs, who don't share their feelings as readily and may not be as aware of them, since introverted feeling develops later for INTJs than it does for ENFPs. INTJs may become frustrated or irritated if they have to talk about their feelings all the time, especially if they have to talk about them spontaneously. INTJs view emotions as private and don't believe in sharing them with the world. It's hard for them when others do this, and it's in their nature to analyze everything, especially feelings. INTJs will also critique in an effort to help. They naturally critique when they see flaws or when they think something needs to change. ENFPs need to know that they're not critiquing to be mean or insensitive. And ENFPs, if your INTJ does this and it bothers you, tell them. INTJs appreciate directness. Most INTJs aren't great at reading subtle cues. To an INTJ, understanding and resolving a problem is much more important than avoiding confrontation. ENFPs, on the other hand, tend to avoid conflict like the plague and value harmony. ENFPs are intensely emotional people. They're sensitive and consider feelings to be something that everyone should respect and express. INTJs, you need to be particularly attentive when your ENFP is sharing his or her feelings and emotions, and try to be as open as possible in sharing yours. This will go a long way with your ENFP partner. Also, instead of critiquing your partner, try the sandwich approach if you want to say something potentially negative. Start with saying something positive, then say the negative, and end on a positive note. Verbal praise is everything to an ENFP. Third, let's look at the INTJ and ENFP's different needs for planning. Again, these two types are very different in their approaches to planning and organizing. Spontaneity versus structure. What's missing from INTJs? Spontaneity. And for ENFPs? Structure. ENFPs who are influenced by their perceiving function tend to leave their plans open-ended for as long as possible. They value freedom to choose and to be spontaneous, and they probably won't make a decision until inspiration strikes. Living life as it comes is very likely to frustrate an INTJ who may see this as directionless or lacking consistency. INTJs may be frustrated by ENFPs living life as it comes, one day at a time, according to how they feel, with no goals. ENFPs may have a lack of consistency and direction that may annoy their INTJ. Above all, INTJs value knowledge and expect competence of themselves and others. They especially abhor confusion, mess, and inefficiency. They may critique those people who do not fit into their model of the world, ignoring the impact of their style on others. INTJs will show their love by helping their ENFP partner reach his or her goals. But as we implied earlier, this tactic may seem condescending to the ENFP. So, INTJs, respect that your ENFP's flexible lifestyle and lighthearted attitude are most likely what drew you to him or her. Too much planning and too many rules and structure is incredibly stressful for your ENFP. Now, ENFPs, hear me on this. Don't expect your INTJ to be spontaneous and immediately adapt to whatever new idea catches your attention. Don't say you're going to do something and then conveniently forget or not follow through. INTJs are wary of people who don't keep their word. Your INTJ will be completely loyal and devoted to you, but you must show them that you mean what you say and say what you mean. Be blunt and direct. Your INTJ will thank you for it. These three areas, socializing, communication, and planning, can be the undoing of an INTJ-ENFP relationship. If the ENFP cannot give the INTJ the space they need, and if the INTJ cannot make the effort to listen and understand the thoughts of the ENFP, the relationship will break down. But by understanding that a certain amount of compromise is necessary, and by being willing to learn and adapt to the needs of their partner, the INTJ-ENFP relationship can endure and grow with every passing year. Thanks so much for the question, Sandra.
Thanks for listening to this episode. If you'd like to hear more, or you'd like to submit a question yourself, then you can find us at www.atopcareer.com. Until next time. MBTI and Myers-Briggs are registered trademarks of the MBTI Trust.